The desert stretched endlessly, a vast ocean of sand and rock shimmering under a sun that seemed intent on burning the world bare. Heat waves twisted the horizon into cruel illusions, promising water and shade where there was none. Jacob Carver trudged across the cracked earth, his boots dragging as if every grain of sand weighed a pound. His lips were split, his throat raw, and his eyes burned with the kind of thirst that could turn a man into a beast. He carried his rifle slung across his back, though even the weight of the steel seemed too much for his failing body. Still, he clung to it as a dying man clings to faith. Carver had not always been this haggard shadow of himself. Once, he was a farmer, a husband, a father who laughed as his boy chased chickens through the yard. But years ago, all that had been carved away in one night of blood and fire. He remembered it with a clarity that even time could not dull, the cries of his wife, the smoke rising from his home, the painted faces of Apache warriors illuminated by the flames as they cut down everything he loved. That night had given birth to a new man, a man who had buried the farmer deep and risen again as a hunter of Apaches. He swore then that he would kill every one he saw, every single one, until there were none left. And he had kept that oath for years, each kill stoking the fire of vengeance in his chest. But vengeance had a way of hollowing a man, and now Carver was little more than a walking shell driven by hatred. He had ridden into this desert on the trail of another war party. He'd heard whispers in a saloon 2 towns back, a group of Apache raiders seen heading south, and Carver's blood had quickened at the thought. He had tracked them for days, riding his horse to exhaustion. But the desert was unforgiving, and even his fury could not change that. His horse had stumbled, wheezed, and dropped lifeless in the dust. Carver had salvaged what he could from the saddle, but the water was gone in hours, baked out of his skin by the relentless sun. Now he staggered forward, his boots crunching on brittle soil, his breath rattling like dry leaves. He knew he was dying. Every step felt like it would be his last, and yet his mind still whispered that cursed oath, kill them. Kill them all. The words had been his fire for so long, but out here, in the endless silence, they sounded more like a curse than a vow. His legs gave out without warning, and he fell hard into the sand. The grains burned his cheek like hot coals. He tried to push himself up, but his arms trembled, and his body refused to rise. Lying there, half buried in the furnace of the desert, he realized he was about to die. No vengeance, no justice, just bones left for the buzzards. He almost laughed at the cruel joke of it all, but no sound came. His lips were too dry, his throat too parched. The sky above him blurred and swam. His vision darkened around the edges, the world shrinking until all that remained was the sound of his own ragged breathing. He thought of his wife's face for the first time in years, soft eyes, gentle smile. He thought of his boy, no older than 10, laughing in the sun. For a moment, the hate burned away, and he was only a man mourning the life he had lost. Then, a shadow fell over him. At first, Carver thought it was a vulture come to pick him apart before his heart even stopped. He tried to lift his arm to swat it away, but the shadow did not move with wings. It was a man. Through the haze of his failing sight, Carver saw the outline of a figure crouching above him. A dark face, bronze skin, hair tied back in a warrior's fashion. The glint of a knife at his belt. Carver's heart thudded, weak but wild. Apache. His hand twitched toward the revolver at his side, though it was little. More than instinct, he had no strength left to draw it. His lips cracked further as he rasped out a whisper. Do it, finish me. His vision flickered again, and he was certain the knife would come next, certain that his life would end here in the dust at the hand of his sworn enemy. He almost welcomed it, at least it would be quick. At least it would not be the slow, thirsty death the desert promised. But the blade did not come. Instead, something cool touched his lips. Water. The faint trickle of it slid over his tongue, and Carver's body responded like a drowning man grasping for air. He coughed, choked, then drank greedily as the Apache tilted a gourd against his mouth. The water was warm and tasted of leather, but to Carver it was life itself. It poured through him like fire, waking parts of his body he thought were already dead. He clutched weakly at the gourd, desperate for more, until the Apache pulled it back and set it aside. Carver blinked, staring up at the man who had just spared him. The warrior's face was unreadable, calm, as if this act of mercy meant nothing. But to Carver, it was everything. Confusion boiled inside him, battling with his hatred. This was not how it was meant to be. The enemy was supposed to kill him, not save him. He wanted to spit, to curse the man, to cling to his vow. But all he could do was lie there, helpless and alive, because of the hand of the one he swore to destroy. The desert wind howled across the rocks, carrying dust and silence between them. Jacob Carver, the man who had vowed to kill every Apache he ever saw, lay breathing because an Apache had given him life. And for the first time in years, his oath felt heavier than the desert itself. Jacob Carver woke to the smell of wood smoke and the faint crackle of fire. For a moment he thought he had passed into death, that he was smelling the burning of his own body on some pyre. But when he opened his eyes, the world was still cruelly alive. The desert sun had dipped low, shadows spilling long across the rocks. Above him, a ledge jutted from the stone, casting shade that dulled the furnace heat. His skin no longer stung with the scorch of the sun, and when he shifted, he felt the cool roughness of a damp cloth pressed against his neck. He turned his head with effort. A few feet away sat the Apache. The warrior crouched by the fire, feeding twigs into the small flame, his face calm, his movements deliberate. Carver blinked, trying to make sense of it. His last clear memory was collapsing into the sand, begging to be finished, and then water touching his lips. And now here he was, alive, shaded, with food and salve laid within reach. Carver's hand drifted toward his side out of instinct, searching for the comfort of his revolver. It was there, holstered against his hip, within reach. The Apache had not disarmed him. That realization sent a ripple through Carver's chest. Was it arrogance, or trust? He could have ended the warrior where he crouched, with a single twitch of his hand. He had done so to others before. But his fingers would not close around the handle. His eyes lingered on the Apache's face. The man was not young, but not yet old, his skin weathered by the same sun that had nearly claimed Carver's life. His hair, tied back with a strip of rawhide, caught the glow of the firelight. His expression was unreadable, not hardened with hatred, nor softened with pity. Just calm, as if saving Carver had been no more unusual than setting a fire or boiling water. The silence between them stretched, broken only by the desert wind sighing through the rocks. Carver cleared his throat, the sound raw and jagged. "Why?" he rasped, the single word heavy as a bullet. His tongue felt thick in his mouth. "Why didn't you let me die?" The Apache looked at him then, eyes dark and steady, and spoke in broken English. "Desert kills both. I do not let it take you." His voice carried no triumph, no demand, only a plain statement of fact. Carver scowled, his lips curling around the bitterness that still clung to him. "You should have slit my throat. That's what your kind does." The Apache tilted his head slightly, as though studying him. Then he shook his head. "Hate feeds the desert. I will not give it more." Carver felt something twist in his chest at those words, though he wanted to spit them out, reject them. Hate had been his fire for so long, the only thing keeping him moving. Without it, he feared he'd collapse into the same emptiness that had nearly taken him. But here was this man, his enemy, refusing to play the part carved out for him. Refusing to give Carver the death he believed he deserved. The warrior reached for a strip of dried meat and set it on a flat stone beside Carver. "Eat, strength will come." Carver's pride flared. He wanted to refuse, to show he did not need the help of an Apache. Yet his body betrayed him. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, sharper than the sting of his pride. Slowly, he reached for the meat, his fingers trembling as he tore a piece with his teeth. It was tough, smoky, but it filled him with warmth. The Apache did not speak again. He tended the fire, adjusted a pot of water balanced on a rock, and sat in silence. Carver chewed, the weight of the moment pressing on him. He had dreamed of this countless times, an Apache before him, vulnerable, close enough to kill. He had always imagined how satisfying it would feel to strike, to take another life in exchange for the one stolen from him. But now, faced with the reality, his hand refused to move. The image of the gourd at his lips, the water saving him from death, was too fresh. At last, Carver broke the silence again. "You don't know what I swore," he muttered, his voice low, as if confessing to the flames. "I swore I'd kill every Apache I ever saw. Every last one." His hand tightened around his knee. "And I've kept that vow." The Apache looked at him, and for the first time, Carver thought he saw a shadow of something in the man's eyes. Not fear, not anger, something quieter, weariness. "Then you carry heavy stone," the warrior said softly. "Each death you take, the stone grows. Someday, it will crush you." Carver's jaw clenched. He wanted to argue, to snarl that it was justice, not burden. But he found no words. Deep inside, beneath the layers of hate, he knew the Apache spoke truth. The killings had never filled the hollow in his chest. They had only made it deeper. The night stretched long, the fire burning low. Carver dozed and woke, his body slowly regaining strength. Each time he opened his eyes, the Apache was there, watching the horizon, feeding the flames, silent and steady as the rocks around them. By dawn, Carver could sit up without the world spinning. The warrior handed him a gourd of water and a strip of food, then stood and whistled softly. From the shadows emerged a horse, lean, strong, its reins braided from rawhide. "For you," the Apache said simply, nodding toward the animal. "The desert is wide, you must leave it." Carver stared, dumbstruck. The man had given him water, food, shade, life itself. And now, a horse. He had expected nothing. In truth, he had expected death. His oath felt like ashes in his mouth, meaningless against such unexplainable mercy. He rose slowly, his legs still weak, and faced the warrior. The words of thanks lodged in his throat, heavy and unspoken. Instead, he reached for his rifle. The Apache's gaze flicked to the weapon, but he did not move, did not flinch. Carver held it a moment, then lowered it to the ground, leaving it at the man's feet. No words passed between them. They did not need them. The rifle said what Carver could not, that he would not raise it against this man, not now, not ever. That the oath he had lived by had shattered in the desert. Carver mounted the horse and rode slowly into the dawn, the desert stretching wide before him. Behind him, the Apache remained by the fire, watching, a still figure against the endless land. As the distance grew, Carver felt the weight of something new pressing on him, not hate, not vengeance, but mercy. And he knew, with a certainty that chilled him, that mercy was harder to carry than hate.